Hold on to your asses, folks. Today I'm ranking the Bourne movies. Before we start, as always, spoiler alert. Starting off, my number 5 is Jason Bourne. What a disappointment this movie was. Remember the shot from the trailer where Bourne knocks a guy out with a single punch?
You're never gonna find any peace. Not till you admit to yourself who you really are.
Yeah, remember how it looked way cooler in the trailer than it did in the movie? That's because they used the reverse angle. I don't know why they used the reverse angle, but they did. So yeah, this movie is disappointing, but not terrible. It follows the same basic formula as the first 4 Bourne movies, but unlike those movies, it doesn't really add anything to that formula to make it stand out. The cast is mostly solid. Matt Damon's great, Vincent Cassel is great, Alicia Vikander and Tommy Lee Jones are both good. The action is good for those who are a fan of Paul Greengrass's shaky cam. On the other hand, Julia Stiles is clearly phoning in, which is disappointing because she was the biggest standout from the first 3 movies. Tommy Lee Jones' performance is good, but his character is just another generic old white guy trying to cover his ass, just like the ones from the previous movies. This movie's biggest problem is that it's formulaic to a fault. Like, beat for beat, it's pretty much the same as the previous 4 Bourne movies. I mean, okay, I guess they do change the car chase up a little bit by having Bourne being the one doing the chasing, but, I mean, that's not much. It's not really a significant change. Not once was I surprised by anything that happens in this movie. My score is 2.5 out of 5. Number 4 is the Bourne Legacy. Look, say what you will about this movie, it's probably better than you remember. It pales in comparison to the trilogy, but it's still pretty damn good. There's one action scene in the house where the editing is pretty bad, but aside from that, the rest of the action is pretty solid. Jeremy Renner is great, and Rachel Weisz and Edward Norton are both good. Unlike Jason Bourne, this movie actually makes a few changes to the formula that help it stand out. For example, instead of a car chase, we get a motorcycle chase. Now, it's still a chase, but you know, it's aesthetically different. And I mean, that's just one example. There are plenty of others. Also, this shot of the missile going off in the background while Aaron just completely ignores it is awesome. Tony Gilroy is fantastic at writing this kind of realistic CIA government espionage material. From characters to language to the actions that the characters take. There's a lot you can learn. Here it gets a little too realistic, to the point where things like character arcs and main villains being defeated are either forgotten or just not given as much focus as they should. Either way, it's fun to watch because it's different from what we're used to. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 3 is the Bourne Supremacy. Like Legacy, this movie has one action scene where the shaky cam and editing make it borderline incomprehensible. But aside from that, the rest of the action is good if not great. I did not plan for these shadows. The acting is all good if not great. Karl Urban only gets a few scenes, but he's easily the most memorable asset in any of the Bourne movies. The reason is because he's introduced to us through anger. He's the one who kills Marie, Bourne's only emotional tether to the world.
Keep going to the shack. I'll meet you there in 1 hour. I'm gonna bail out on the other side of this bridge. It's the only way it can follow us.
What if it's not who you think it is?
It's them. It's Treadstone.
Jason, don't do it.
Look, Marie, I
don't want
warned
you
them.
to
Marie,
do
I
it.
told them what would happen if they didn't leave us alone.
It's never gonna be over like this. I don't want...
We don't have a choice.
Yes, you do.
I do wonder what could have been if Doug Liman stayed on for the sequels, but Paul Greengrass made his mark without straying too far from what was established. I do miss getting to hear Bourne's inner thoughts, and without Marie, we're left to just interpret what he's thinking based on his actions and facial expressions, which is a good use of show don't tell, but still. But yeah, this movie kind of reminds me of John Wick Chapter 2, where the only reason any of the conflict happens is because the villains decided they needed to get the hero involved, even though the hero was, like, out of it. Matt Damon is great, Julia Stiles is great, Brian Cox is good, Joan Allen is really good. The music is solid, and I love the ending. The score is 4 out of 5. Number 2 is the Bourne Ultimatum. This one is definitely an improvement on Supremacy. The action is better, especially in terms of the editing. The music, acting, and writing are all just as good. The fight between Bourne and Desh is arguably the best in the franchise, or at least one of the best. Julia Stiles has a bigger role this time around and arguably gives her best performance in the franchise. This film has excellent pacing because it does a great job of building and maintaining momentum. Bourne is always going somewhere to do something, and there's always someone on his tail. I also love that they don't wuss out in terms of the hero's demons. It has been established that Bourne used to be a cold-hearted assassin, and the filmmakers back this up by actually showing him execute a defenseless person in one of the flashbacks. My score is 4.5 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is the Bourne Identity. Up until recently, this was my number 2 and Ultimatum was my number 1, but my opinions have changed recently. At the time, this was Doug Liman at the top of his game. The writing and acting are both solid, the music is some of the best in the franchise, the action is all great, the cinematography and editing are on point. I think the main reason this movie is my favorite is because of Marie. Through her, we're given a peek into the depths of Bourne's character, more so than in any of the sequels, because he learns to be open and vulnerable with her. Their interactions are one of the main reasons this movie works so well for me. And Franca Potente and Matt Damon both give great performances, and they play off of each other very well.
These are real. Who has a safety deposit box full of money and 6 passports and a gun? Who has a bank account number in their hip? I come in here, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm catching the sight lines and looking for an exit.
I see the exit sign too. I'm not worried. I mean, you were shot. People do all kinds of weird and amazing stuff when they're scared.
I can tell you the license plate numbers of all 6 cars outside. I can tell you that our waitress is left-handed and the guy sitting up at the counter weighs 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. I know the best place to look for a gun is the cab of the gray truck outside. And at this altitude, I can run flat out for a half mile before my hands start shaking. Now, why would I know that? How can I know that and not know who I am?
The fight scene in the house where he stabs the guy with the pen, just fantastic. My score is 4.5 out of 5. Hey everyone, what's your ranking? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that. And if you don't like the video, subscribe anyway. That way you'll be notified when I upload a new video and you can tell me how bad that one is. And, you know, maybe tell me why, so I can actually get some feedback. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.